Welcome to Topps TV Showcase on Industry Icons. Tonight's icon, Arthur Shorin, longtime Topps CEO. Arthur's been involved in the industry from the very early days and continues to mold the present and future. Arthur has led the industry through the toughest of times and the most glorious. So sit back and enjoy the stories of this industry icon. I'm here with Arthur Shorin, the CEO of the Topps Company, and he's going to tell us the top story from his eyes. Let's start with the name Topps.
Yes.
How did you come up with the name Topps?
Well, contrary to popular opinion, I wasn't there at the time. I'm only as old as Methuselah, and that happened, before. But the brothers, there were four Shorin brothers, my dad being one of them, came up with the name of Top as something that would distinguish as the best. You're the Topps, you're the cats, and they felt that they had to put an extra P in to make it distinctive and to be able to trademark it. And so that's where Topps came from.
Tell me a little bit by decade, just in real general terms, how has this industry and the Topps Company evolved?
Well, we began in the late 30s. The brothers started the business in 1938, and they began with an adult chewing gum called Topps chewing gum. And it was a very high-quality gum, but it was awfully difficult to sell against the Wrigleys and the Dentines and the Chiclets. But in the 40s, when the war broke out, those major players couldn't get enough sugar to run their factories. Because you couldn't get any gum, really, Topps, which was made in a very small factory, was available, and so everything was terrific, just terrific, until the war ended. And of course, we're all glad that the war ended, but when it did, people would look at Topps and say, I don't have to chew that anymore, the real Wrigley is back. And so we were virtually out of business. Houses went, camp was canceled, my allowance went from $2 a week to 35 cents a week. For maybe 4 or 5 years, I didn't buy a piece of clothing. It was all hand-me-downs, fortunately for my brother, not my sister. So in the late 40s, they really had a struggle. And that's when they created Bazooka Bubblegum as something else that they could sell through that channel of distribution. In the 50s itself, we began making baseball cards, and that's where your 52 mantle comes from. I remember a wonderful ad that they placed in the New York Times that is a classic, and it showed a youngster with, I think, a St. Louis Cardinal hat. I'm not sure, but he had this grin of satisfaction on his face. And the copy line was, if you want to make a kid happy, give him a nickel and send him to the store to buy a pack of Topps baseball cards. And so that was pretty much the 50s. In the 60s and 70s, we started selling entertaining products. We sold a product called Flying Things. I don't know if you ever heard of that, Alan, but a Flying Thing was a polystyrene airplane, but they weren't just airplanes. They were flying noses, flying schmohawks, flying mother-in-laws. We were selling to Woolworth, and there was no candy involved in Flying Things. And the buyer said, it's a fantastic product, and it was, but there's no candy. Just put a little chiclet in the package, anything, just so that I can buy it in my department. And that's exactly what we did. We manufactured a product called Gold Rush. It was little bits of candy-coated yellow gum, yellow candy coating, in a Bull Durham drawstring bag. And it was so popular, but I mean white-hot popular, that the Federal Drug Administration got reports that there must be drugs. And they brought in a team to inspect the factory looking for the drugs. Wow. And at the end of the day, they came to our then president, my cousin Joel, and they said, we're coming back tomorrow with a bigger team. And Joel said, look, you can inspect all you want. You're more than welcome. Can I just tell you this? The product retails for 10 cents. We sell the product to the wholesaler for 6 cents. The bag costs this, the box costs this, the gum costs this, the labor costs this, the shipping costs this, the cash discount costs this. How much money do you think is left for drugs? Right. And the guy said, Mr. Shorin, we won't be back. You're absolutely right. And that was the end of it.
So go continue into the 80s.
In 1980, the company was in some pretty bad straits. We were a couple of weeks away from not making a payroll, and things were really bad. I don't think it gets any worse than that. We owed $7 million to a bank. We owed $7 million to an insurance company, and we needed yet another $7 million to stay alive. And a lot of people did a lot of fantastic work here. I mean, the people really pitched in. It was either save the business or we're done. With the help of many, we did a great job. Then the 90s. The 90s began to show the effects of the proliferation, and baseball cards and sports cards in general went down at the rate of, I don't know, 15% per annum. It was a very, very serious time. At the same time, our candy business was really blooming. And it's interesting because as a public company, we had the analysts who had been saying, you know, the card business is really terrible. You ought to get rid of the card business and focus on the candy business. And now we're finding that they're saying, well, you know, the candy business is kind of weak. It's you really ought to be focusing on it. But this is that kind of a business. It's very challenging. It's highly complex, and it is serving consumers and building stockholder value. And that's really what we're about. Alan, can I know we're at the end. Can I have just a moment to
Absolutely
speak to the camera if I'm looking at it straight? For those of you who are willing to watch all of this, and even for those who aren't but are Topps enthusiasts and supporters, I want to thank you sincerely for the years of support. It's a labor of love here, and I have a feeling that that's returned on the other side. And I can't tell you how important that is to me personally and to our organization. On behalf of them and even our board of directors, I want to thank you all sincerely, and I hope that we can count on your continued support in the years to come. Thank you.